Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Views on News. I'm your host for today, Fahim. Bangash. Well, today the agenda item that we're going to be discussing is the G20 Summit, which is being held in Srinagar. And as we know, the G20 is an intergovernmental organization, and basically it is 19 countries and the EU. And also the most important part is that it accounts for 80% of the world's GDP. And we know that the presidentship for this year happens to be with India, and Pakistan did protest in the beginning as well. And now that India has taken this step that it will be held in Srinagar from the 22nd to the 24th. Many of the countries have also protested. Of course, Kashmir is a lingering dispute. Kashmir has been on the agenda item of the United Nations since the last 75 years. And I think many people from the Kashmiri society, whenever we have spoken to them, they have also said that the international community should step up and actually do something about it. And now we've actually seen some of the countries, some of the member states backing off from the G20 summit, not registering for their the participation in the G20 summit being held in Srinagar. Of course, this is something huge, and we will be talking about this in detail, in depth. As far as the panel members are concerned, I think now is the time that I should introduce you people with them. The first panel member is Lieutenant General retired Moinuddin Haider, former Interior Minister and former Governor Sindh. Moinuddin Haider Saab, welcome to PTV World.
Thank you.
And also our second panel member happens to be Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, Executive Director, Center for International Strategic Studies, Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Ma'am, welcome to PTV World. Lovely. Lovely to have you people with us now. Now, this is something really important that has to be discussed, because many a times what happens is that we, as anchors, we happen to interact with people from the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and people over there say that instead of lip service, people should be doing some actual things. The international community should be coming forward with some actual steps. And I think this is something really concrete. And I think people in the occupied valley must be appreciating these steps taken by countries like China, like Turkey. So, ma'am, I start with you first. Now, what's your take on this, and how do you see this?
I firmly believe that when we operate in a certain international system, there are certain rules and regulations which every country has to follow. And keeping those restrictions and rules and regulations in mind, I see that Pakistan, since day one for last 76 years, Pakistan is trying its best to support the Kashmir cause, to help Kashmiri people, and to raise voice and never to shy away from supporting Kashmiris. And that is why today on 22nd May, when India is trying to create the false information bubble that everything is normal in Indian-occupied Kashmir, Pakistan's foreign minister visited Azad Jammu and Kashmir and addressed to the Legislative Assembly, and which is, by the way, for the first time, it's first time ever that Pakistan's foreign minister addressed the Legislative Assembly and talked to the legislators of IIOJK. And for me, it is a sign that Pakistan's untiring efforts to support the just cause of Kashmir, right to self-determination for Kashmiri people. So within the given framework, whatever Pakistan is doing, that is highly appreciable, and that is why that today the tourism meetup of G20 countries is not that successful in Srinagar. And as you yourself mentioned, that at least 5 countries refrained from participating in that event. Moreover, the Modi's policies of increase the militarization of Srinagar, of occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and do all those security measures, and the way they were trying to create the false image of normalization of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that bounced back. That actually, because heavy militarization is a sign that something is not right in that territory. So people are insecure in that territory, and that is why heavy militarization is needed. The way Indian Marines were in the Dal Lake and all those security checkups, all these are signs that there is a certain level of insecurity is in the region, and that is why several international newspapers they published special stories that how this G20 meeting in Srinagar has made the lives of Kashmiris in the Indian occupied Kashmir more miserable, more restrictive, and how there was a mass movement by Indian occupied forces to arrest more Kashmiris in order to mitigate the potential threat. And if there
Potential
are
threat, right.
potential threat, it means that it is everything is not right, and that is because of this move of Mr. Modi to hold this summit and this meeting in Srinagar, that UN special representative on Kashmir and several other UN representatives, they issued and international scholars, they issued special statements that this policy of Modi to create a false facade of normalization cannot be successful and will never be successful. And this reminds me, Sayyid Ali Gilani, the famous Kashmiri leader who passed away a few years back, Sayyid Ali Gilani said that even if India would made all roads in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir of gold, if all roads would be of gold, even then Kashmiris would never ever accept the Indian subjugation and illegal occupation. And this is the reality, because if a conflict, if it has started by the denial of basic right, and that basic right is the right to choose, the right to see that where those people, Kashmiri, indigenous Kashmiri population, what they want for themselves, the denial of that right led to this conflict. And that is why this conflict can only be resolved by addressing the root cause, which is the denial to the right to self-determination of indigenous Kashmiris.
And you're right,
Not
like
even
Mr. Gilani
this
said, I
one
think his
summit.
statement speaks volumes as far as the sentiments of the Kashmiri people are concerned. You're very right. Now, Moinuddin Saab, coming to you, sir. Now, this step by India, this irrational, irresponsible step, as many are calling it, many philosophers, many people, many analysts, many journalists, they're calling it irresponsible. They're trying to tell the world that all is normal. Do you think the world is going to buy that? Because obviously many of the nations have backed off from there, but still many of the nations still are going to attend the event. They're going to participate. They're going to be a part of it. But do you think that this is going to be a successful thing for India?
Certainly not. And I think it will backfire. And India thinks that it can show normalcy there. But people who are coming there are very mature people, and already they have information about the conditions obtaining in the occupied Kashmir, the induction of huge forces and military occupation of the area, violation of human rights, changing the demography of occupied Kashmir, and bringing down their houses and putting them to torch and arson. All this is very visible to the world. I mean, we have UNIMOG observers, military observers. We have defense attaches based in New Delhi. We have ambassadors. So the whole world knows what is going on there. But since G20, they want to meet together and discuss many issues. For example, China has taken a very clear stand. But UK, for example, has said that not changing our official policy on Kashmir, we are attending. But they know it's a disputed territory. And that in a disputed territory, they should not be holding an international event of such nature. So I think this will backfire. Instead of India gaining something out of it to show normalcy, people will see abnormalcy there, and it will basically go against India.
You're quite right.
And secondly,
also,
the whole world knows. Yes.
Yeah, please continue.
The whole world knows that for 75 long years, in spite of sufferings, in spite of persecution, in spite of violation of human rights, their desire for self-determination has not died down. And Pakistan certainly is a party to this. And our support to them, apart from moral and diplomatic, I mean, we are a party to this dispute. And according to the unfinished agenda of partition, uh, principally, this should be part of Pakistan. So we are very much a party. We'll continue to raise our voice for them and do everything possible. This will never die down. India should realize this. It is in their interest to settle this issue.
So like you very rightly said, this is an internationally recognized disputed territory, and like China also said that we don't want to come to a disputed territory that's against our policies. And also, like you were mentioning, the UN Military Observers Group, something very important sprang up on the media on the 15th of May. Fernan D. Varenis, U.S. Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues, said, and I quote, that by holding a G20 meeting of the Working Group on Tourism on the 22nd to 24th of May, the government of India is seeking to normalize what some have described as a military occupation by instrumentalizing a G20 meeting and portraying an international seal of approval, I unquote. Now, do you think the UN would be perhaps successful in perhaps showing the true face of India to the rest of the world?
I think somebody should take the case in United Nations General Assembly or raise the issue in Security Council and highlight this issue. But certainly, I mean, by holding the meeting there, this matter, I think, has been further globalized and internationalized, and it has come to light. It's a new life to this problem by holding the G20 Summit there, and all the discussions and debates going on the issue and comments by various agencies. I think India has lost more rather than gained much.
That's very right. And now coming back to you, Dr. Asma, of course, we also heard the spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Ministry is saying that China is firmly opposed to holding any kind of G20 meetings in disputed territory and will not attend such meetings, unquote. Don't you think that's a deadly blow to the that facade that India had created, that everything is normal? And this slap coming from the Chinese side, I think that's quite a blow to the nefarious designs by India.
Actually, Modi's policy to create this false image of normalization actually is counterproductive, because it reminded the world that Kashmir dispute, this Kashmir conflict, is the unfinished agenda of UNO, and it is still on the agenda of UNO. So that is why it needs resolution. So Modi, unfortunately, trying to be quite witty and clever or cunning, actually internationalized Kashmir conflict once again. And so many states, international organizations and agencies and scholars, journalists, newspapers, they are focusing on it. And today, I would say that I was fortunate enough to attend that historical moment when the Foreign Minister of Pakistan was addressing the Legislative Assembly. And one thing which he categorically, clearly said, that Pakistan is party to the Kashmir conflict. Pakistan is standing by the Kashmir brothers, and the conflict of Kashmir should be resolved as per the will and wishes of indigenous Kashmiri people, according to the resolutions of UNO. Another thing he said, and which reflects upon the preparedness of Pakistan, that we are ready to offer as many cups of tea as India wants, but we prefer peaceful conflict resolution. So this shows that Pakistan is, again, unlike like India always sideline Kashmir conflict or shrug Kashmir conflict under the carpet, under the notion that Kashmir is a bilateral issue and that would be resolved bilaterally. But on the other hand, whenever Pakistan offers, let's sit on the table and decide the implementation plan of UN resolutions, India runs away. India refuses, and that refusal itself is against the spirit of bilateralism. And again, following the same Pakistani attitude to ensure peaceful dialogue on Kashmir conflict, to ensure regional peace through meaningful dialogue, Mr. Bilawal, again, Pakistan's foreign minister, expressed Pakistan's desire to resolve Kashmir conflict. So it was, for me, it was like in Indian occupant forces in Indian occupied Kashmir were holding a conference or a meeting of international representatives to create an impression which definitely is contradictory to ground realities. On the other hand, Pakistani government, Pakistan's foreign minister was standing by the Kashmiri brothers and looking to find a way forward to resolve Kashmir conflict and to look forward to the future and see that how Pakistan and Kashmiri indigenous population, Kashmiris, can collaborate further to ensure a peaceful, prosperous lives for Kashmiri population. So this is the difference when a country is imperialist, occupant, colonial power in a state, it acts like India is acting in Jammu and Kashmir, and still they are unsuccessful or fail to create the impression of normalization in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. On the other hand, Pakistan is standing by Kashmiris and through mutual consent, consultation, by addressing or by encouraging democratic values, democratic culture, by talking to the representative of people collectively without picking or choosing anything, Pakistan is trying to look forward in the future. And this is this is the difference between India and Pakistan. This is how Pakistan view Kashmir, like from the perspective of humanity, from the perspective of Kashmiris. Kashmir is not a piece of land, but it is a group of Kashmiri people, Kashmiri Muslims living on this territory. But for India, it is only a piece of territory, a feather in the cap of Hindutva, an occupied territory where Muslims are in majority to satisfy the Hindutva agenda and Hindutva ego, or to gain more votes in the domestic or indigenous elections, vernacular elections. So this is the difference of approach, which was very visible today on 22nd of May, which India thought would be a landmark event, would create a bubble for international community that everything is normal in Kashmir. But on the other way around, international community today has seen that everything is not normal in Kashmir. As our foreign minister said, that in a normal country or a normal territory or cities have not been seized. People are not arrested massively without any
Right.
law, and so much militarization is not there. The elected representatives are not, like, there were no elected representatives there to meet those people, the international audience. So this is not normal situation, and world today has witnessed it, that everything is not normal in Kashmir.
Exactly. That's
In
why
India
you're calling it the facade of normalcy that India has created. Quite right you are. Now, Moinuddin Saab, coming back to you, sir. Always the stance of India that we've heard, as far as I remember, the late Sushma Swaraj used to say that Kashmir is the atut ang of India, the unbreakable part of India, and that Kashmir is an internal matter of India. Whereas the stance of Pakistan is also very, very clear to the entire world. Pakistan has been mentioning, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also passed a statement and gave actual statistics that since the 5th of August 2019 unilateral actions by Indian government, the occupation forces have killed 639 innocent Kashmiris in extrajudicial murders. I mean, there are a lot of figures like that. And also Pakistan gave a dossier to the United Nations, and Pakistan has been quite vocal about the issue of Kashmir, and Pakistan has been mentioning each and everything, each and every atrocity in quite unequivocal terms. So, sir, how do you think the world is seeing the stance of Pakistan? Because on one hand, we have India, which has alliances all over the world, and on the other, we have Pakistan, which is speaking for the right of the Kashmiri people. So how do you think the people around the world, the governments around the world, are seeing the stance from the Pakistani lens?
The mere fact that this problem remains on the agenda of Security Council shows that it is a dispute recognized by international community.
True.
Number two, there have been wars with India. 65 wars were related to Kashmir to quite an extent. And in the Simla agreement, it was agreed and recognized as a dispute, but they said rather than going to international forums, we'll decide the issue bilaterally. But they did nothing in this regard. There was no meaningful dialogue. There was wastage of time and this a two-tongue kahani every time. And
True.
Pakistan retook this matter and raised this matter again in the General Assembly and in the Security Council, and it is recognized there. The problem is there, but some leaders in India do
Right. So,
as they
can you
want to
hear
become,
me?
member of National Security Council. And,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Yes. So. Vajpayee, was keen to have a composite dialogue and resolve all issues, including Kashmir. And Manmohan Singh was also right. So this is a problem, and this is a dispute, and this is to be resolved, so that the two joint neighbors can have better relations and SAARC can move forward. So international community does recognize. You have seen Turkey all the time giving support to Pakistan in this issue. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and many other countries have been supporting Pakistan on this issue. So it is an international issue. It is on the agenda of Security Council. It will not go away. And most important thing is that the spirit of the occupied Kashmiri people, 639 figure that you have.
Right, sir. Can you hear me properly? Right. So we will continue the discussion with you too. Right now we have on the telephone line Ms. Naila Chauhan, a former ambassador. Ma'am, welcome to PTV World.
Thank you so much.
Now, ma'am, of course, we're discussing the issue of Kashmir. We're discussing how the G20 Summit is being held in Srinagar. This clear violation of so many rules, this clear irresponsible attitude from the Indian side is clear to the entire world. Now, obviously, we know all the abductions which are taking place in Kashmir, the human rights violations which are being done there, and obviously not to forget the demographic change that India is trying to bring in the Kashmir Valley. Now, do you think that India is facing some sort of international isolation due to the fact that many of the countries have either not registered or are just not ready to be a part of the summit?
Yes, Bangash, I totally agree with you. You see, in my view, they tried to play a very risky game. They thought that by using G20 platform and hosting the working group on tourism there, they would be able to get a green signal from the rest of the world and a facade of normalcy. And unfortunate for them and good luck for us that Mr. Fahim, the special rapporteur on minorities, very clearly stated the actual situation. Now, the Modi government, I thought, was basically trying to use this for their election. It's a Hindutva, agenda. but it has backfired. As you earlier on had informed your audience that G20 is basically 19 countries and the 20th is EU. Out of these countries, you can see that China categorically said it will not participate in this. Turkey and Saudi Arabia have not registered. There are many other countries that have not registered also. Interestingly enough, Egypt is the chair of NEPAD, which is G20's partner in African development. So that means the whole of Africa has not participated in it. It has
That's quite true. Yeah.
isolated India in a very critical moment for the government, the Indian government, which was thinking that it would get this international approval and thus their agenda for their elections would be successful. But actually they have isolated themselves. They were talking about how they were painting the walls, making it beautiful. Actually, they were whitewashing all the statements by Kashmiris or graffitis on the wall, highlighting the treachery of the government. In my view, it has been very unsuccessful for the Indians, but it is wonderful that our foreign minister, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, to show support, went to Kashmir, Muzaffarabad. It was a very important message. And his statement in the Azad Kashmir Parliament further reinforced Pakistan's principled position. And you would also appreciate that it was India that had taken the Kashmir issue to UN Security Council. And then they reneged from it. They have been reneging from their commitments internationally and to the people of Kashmir over the last 7.5 decades. Now, their horrendous face has been, exposed.
Quite right you are. Also, Naila Saiba, like you very rightly mentioned, that Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahib, he's shown a very mature move by going to the Azad Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly. He's also meeting a delegation of the refugees from the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir to show solidarity with the people of Kashmir. And of course, he will also, according to reports, be a part of a protest movement for solidarity with the Kashmiri people in Bagh as well. Also, we know that every time we speak to people from the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, one thing that is common in all the people whom we speak to, that the international community should do more. Now, do you think just by not registering or not participating in the G20 summit being held in Srinagar, is it enough, or does the world need to do further more? And if so, what more?
Well, you see, there are different things that we are talking about here. The thing which was our basic agenda is the G20 meeting they were trying to hold, which seems to have backfired on them. But when it comes to international community doing more, I think this will intensify the debate at the UN level, because now the countries, many of the countries who have accepted to go even, have downgraded their representation. So they're basically sending their representatives who are based in Delhi to be there to see what's going on. That itself is watered down Indian enthusiasm, no matter what their media says. Now, this is the first step. Actually, this reinforces Pakistan's principled position on Kashmir and our reiteration that this problem needs resolution under the UN Security Council resolutions. So I'm confident that now the next step will be that it will be taken to the UN Security Council, it will be debated, and I think international pressure on India will further increase, and they may have to withdraw their decisions that they had taken in August 2019.
Well, we do hope for the best, Naila Saiba. Thank you very much, Ms. Naila Chauhan, former ambassador, for giving out your time to us and talking to us regarding this very pertinent issue. Now, coming back to Dr. Asma, ma'am, now we know that former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Ms. Mehbooba Mufti, she compared the condition of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir right now with Guantanamo Bay, because already we were calling it the biggest open prison of the entire world, because for every one Kashmiri there were about 7 to 10 soldiers. Now, definitely that's something really alarming, because she has compared this whole territory to Guantanamo Bay, and we obviously know what Guantanamo Bay stands for. And obviously we know about the arrests of innocent Kashmiris ahead of the G20 Summit. We know about not 2 but 3, 4, 5 tier security ahead of the G20 Summit, because obviously world leaders were coming. Too much militarization of the area. What is your take on Mehbooba Mufti's statement?
Let me say that it is not only Mehbooba Mufti, but it is Arundhati Roy and several other scholars and people like Anuradha Bhasin, who are working on Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They stated the same thing. Arundhati Roy said that now world should, when it was COVID in the world, that now world should know that how people of indigenous Kashmiris of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir are feeling, because they've been quarantined by the Indian colonization for last 76 years, since 1947. They are living in a quarantined life. So this is exactly what Mehbooba Mufti is saying. But let me remind you that Mehbooba Mufti was once an ally of BJP. She supported BJP's ingress in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and it was her who had an alliance with BJP government and made them visible in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. But what happened on 5th August 2019, that Modi has made all even pro-India Kashmiri leadership, although they are really in minority, but they have made those pro-India leader or voices against Modi regime and BJP regime, because Mehbooba Mufti was under house arrest as well, despite being an ally of BJP. Her father was also an ally of BJP, so she was in house arrest, and now that is why and this happened to all Kashmiri leaders which trusted India, and that includes Pakistan as well, because Pakistan trusted India in UNO, that UNO has accepted, that India has accepted the UN resolution of plebiscite in Kashmir, so they would do it. But India betrayed everyone when it comes to Kashmir resolution, whether it was Abdullah or Farooq Abdullah or any Kashmir, you name it, any Kashmiri leader. So it is the biggest mistake to trust on India or on BJP when it comes to Kashmir. And now Mehbooba Mufti has seen herself that how Kashmir is suffering or burning under Modi regime or BJP regime. Why? Because Congress had this policy, as mentioned in the book of S.K. Dullat, the Congress an expert on Kashmir, and he was advisor of Congress government on Kashmir, especially Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the BJP regime as well. So he wrote that Modi has created a mess in Kashmir because he is using the policies of aggression, the policies of subjugation, rule through terror and fear. Because before that, at least the Congress government was successful in creating an impression, creating a false image again, that they are dealing with Kashmir sensibly, which definitely they were not. But at least this perception was created by them. But Modi has unleashed all colonial traits of the colonial power India in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that is why that policy of aggression is being not only manifested but witnessed by pro-India Kashmiri leadership, including Mehbooba Mufti. And she rightly said that Kashmir has turned into a castle. It is a sieged area where Kashmiris, indigenous Kashmiri, and how that area cannot be called sieged when 900,000 Indian occupying forces are residing on that territory. And that number, huge number, is so dangerous for the environment of the region. For it is a curse for the climate change. It can cause climate crisis. And but there, as I said earlier, that India sees, or India deals with Kashmir as a piece of territory. It is not a piece of land which has impact on human life, where humans are suffering because of the expansionist, subjugation-based policies of India. And let me remind you, that not only 900,000 Faujis in Indian occupied Faujis in Kashmir, it is Siachen as well, where India refused to declare Siachen a peace park on the request of Pakistan, even because they thought that militarization of Siachen would be strategically beneficial for India. So they don't care about the climate crisis imposed on billions of people living in South Asia. India itself would suffer, if not today, tomorrow, with this crisis. But India
Exactly. The repercussions
categorically
could be
refused.
many, and the repercussions could be quite negative for India. And like you very rightly said, this thing has actually backfired. Now, Moinuddin Saab, coming back to you, sir. Now, we were talking to Miss Naila Chauhan, former ambassador, she very rightly mentioned that, and also we were talking to Dr. Asma, and they were saying that there are some sane voices from inside India which are actually, ever since the scrapping of the special status of Kashmir, they have been talking about the BJP government, the usurping of the rights of the Kashmiri people, their basic human right, the right to self-determination, which is not being given to them. Now, sir, do you think these voices may go a long way inside India, or do you think they will also die down with the passage of time? Because obviously we do see a deafening silence from, especially from those parts of the world who are, ambassadors of human rights.
Yes, I think we have to continue raising this issue in the world. And there are many people whose conscience is alive in India, some in Congress, and journalists and fair people who say that the treatment being given to the Kashmiris, especially after this 5 August, is inhuman. And they do raise their voice. But if you see Modi's policies, apart from Kashmir that we are discussing today, for whole of Muslims in India are, you have seen that discrimination is very visible everywhere. And I think India is not earning a good image by being, very unfair to the Muslim community of over 200 million strong. And India thinks this problem will go away. The problem will not go away. And it has not gone in 76 years. It has not gone. And it is something to be resolved. And the world community today may not be taking very strong action like it took in East Timor, or it took, in Nigeria or Sudan. But the world knows, because of its many trade and other compulsions, it has a soft corner for India. But they know that India principally is not correct. And someday,
right, sir, the world knows, you're absolutely right. But then it is due to the silence of the world that we see such daring actions by the Indian government, that we see such irresponsible attitude from the Indian government, just like the one which happened right now of holding the G20 Summit in Srinagar.
Yes, this is true. And I think a sort of befitting reply has been given to them by China and some other friendly countries who abstained from registration or attending this conference. This is a strong message, and I think it will create a controversy in the world press and in the world forums, and India will lose more rather than gain from this misadventure, I should say, which they tried to do in Kashmir.
So, sir, how do you analyze the future of India? Because obviously, India had planned that it will show its technological prowess to the world. It will show how economically it has progressed so much to the entire world. So naturally, like we have been discussing, it has sort of backfired from many of the states, from some friendly states. Now, how long do you think it is going to take, in your opinion, according to your analysis, how long do you think it's going to take for the world to actually realize what the true face of India is?
I think they do realize the true face of India. There is no doubt that India is an industrial power, and in IT and financial, India is a rising power, and that is why the world wants to do business with them. It can't afford to lose that huge market. There's no doubt about this.
True.
But at the same time, there are many people who are still below poverty line, and the policies of Modi of Hindutva and RSS these days, they're dealing with a very large minority of Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, and Dalits. The way they are suppressing them and violating human rights, this will backfire. This will never make India great. One does not become great only by creating wealth, but you have to follow the high principles. You have to be graceful. You have to follow human rights. You have to take care of the poor people, which India is not. And I think it's in due course of time, this will be very visible. This will be very visible.
That's right, and we do hope so, and we do hope for the best, sir. Thank you very much for being with us. And Dr. Asma, finally, because we have been discussing this in its true entirety in detail, very briefly, I want to have your closing remarks on today's issue, because naturally, all the viewers, they're watching us, they're engaged with us, they're visually participating with us on today's quite pertinent event, so because it's starting today. So what are your remarks in general, the closing remarks which you'd like to share?
First of all, you asked a question regarding the sane voices in India. So
Yeah.
I would like to add that due to the Modi's domestic politics campaign, sane voices are not part of popular discourse in India. We should not forget that on the freedom of speech index, India is like several points below Pakistan. So this is the situation of that how right now Indian popular culture is accommodating sane voices. They don't. Sane voices have no constituency of India, thanks to the policies of BJP. The Manishankar Iyer, Navjit Singh Sindhu, you name it, and those people have no popular representation in India. So right now, the situation is not conducive for the sane voices. And then if you see Indian media, Modi's media policy or BJP's media policy has shrink the space of all alternate voices on Indian TV. On all TV channels, you would listen or see similar point of view echoing again and again through different faces. You would not see alternate, different diversification of opinion. So this is how India is functioning these days, and that is why India is sliding down on democratization indexes and has become an electoral autocracy. So how I would like to conclude is that we should be hopeful, because struggle means consistency. Struggle is a process, it's not a product. So we should keep on working for Kashmiri
Absolutely
brothers.
right,
And hope
Dr.
for the
Asma.
best.
Thank you very much for giving your remarks, for giving your time, and for being with us and for participating in the show with us. Well, definitely this is quite a pertinent issue. Definitely, Dr. Asma, what she said was absolutely right. Things have to be done on an individual level, at a mass level, to speak for the people of Kashmir, to speak for the rights of the people of Kashmir. There are brothers, there are sisters, there are children. We need to speak up for them as analysts, as students, as people doing a job, as journalists, as people of the society. We have to look after them. They are brothers and sisters. Well, take care. Thank you for joining us. Keep watching BTV World.
Was it mere rage or deep-rooted hatred?